Well, it's Tuesday. Welcome everyone to Accelerate Your Coaching, your consulting. I am Tracy Rader, and I'm here, of course, with Chris, the one that makes it all happen. So glad you're here.
That's one of those. That's Steve Cockrum say that's an American introduction right there. Right?
Well, I guess that would make sense.
I hear two of you. I think
I know I do too. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
I think it's
we've got Facebook going at the same time, so that's all.
That's good. Hey, we are everywhere.
We're
so
everywhere.
we are on Giant. We are on Giant. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. So right. Wherever you are tuning in from, we would love to know that you're here. Don't hide out in the background. Go ahead and introduce yourself on any of those platforms. Just leave a comment in the chat and let us know where you are and where you're tuning in from. We're just glad that you've chosen to be with us today. How's your week going, Tracy?
Mine's great. You know what? The first thing I thought of when I opened my eyes this morning was this, because I'm so excited about our guest today. So
I am too. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Dan's a good friend, amazing colleague. I can't wait for everybody to learn from him. Dan and I know Dan probably better than maybe most other consultants, just because he lives here in Atlanta with me. We've done a lot of work together. He's had a tremendous influence and impact on my own consulting and my own life. And so I'm just thrilled to have Dan with us today, which is really great.
That's right.
There it is.
Hey, I need a tissue.
If you needed a boost today, Dan, you're getting it. We're big fans, if you can't tell.
Likewise.
Yeah, I'll have Dan introduce himself in just a moment, and he can give you just a brief kind of background. But what's important for today's conversation, and Dan would be the first to kind of shun the spotlight for who he is. But the truth is, Dan was our top consultant in 2019. And that's significant. That means a lot in a world of, we've got a family of a lot of talented people that are doing a lot of important work all over the globe. And for Dan to kind of be the guy to come out on top at the end of the year, I can guarantee you that it was not by chance. He put a lot of effort and a lot of hard work in, and he has tremendous influence, not just with clients, but I would say within our consulting family as well. And I will end this with this before we hand it to you, Dan. But just for me personally, Dan has just, especially as I was in the early days of consulting, having done that for the first time, we shared this a few weeks ago, or just about my own history, that I kind of found myself in the consulting space out of need, out of necessity. I was laid off and all of a sudden finding a place where I wasn't ready to kind of go and give my family's livelihood to another company after I just kind of had the rug pulled out from under me, so to speak. Dan is one of those guys early on that has just been really close and just had a tremendous influence on my own ability. So excited to have you here, Dan. And this is why we've asked Dan to be here. And we're going to do this about once a month, or try to pull in some of our own consultants and consulting family to just take a moment to talk about what advice would they give for maybe people who just aren't quite as far along in their consulting careers, maybe even starting out. What are some things that he's learned? So he's going to be doing that today. Tracy's going to be waiting in the wings. She'll be manning the chat. We would welcome any questions at any point. Feel free to drop those in there. Tracy will answer any that she can. She'll pull some of those in here in just a minute. After we talk for a little bit, we'll stop and ask questions, and you can ask me or Dan anything you'd like, and she'll be there to be able to serve you in the midst. So
yeah, and I was going to say, Dan, before I go, I mean, off screen here, you've got a fan base already coming, so there's a lot of shout outs to you. So just know that from the UK and all the way to Albuquerque, New Mexico, people can't wait. So I'll see you all in a little bit.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks.
So why don't you give a little bit of an intro to who you are, and then we'll get into today's content.
Yeah, thanks. So thanks for the words, guys. I mean, it's right back at you and Tracy, Chris. I mean, I know I'm not where I'm at as a giant without your involvement either. So I think it all works. It all comes around. So right back at you. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dan Frey. I'm one of the legacy giants. So if you've ever heard the term heads or priory coming out of Steve or Jeremy's mouth, I was at the very, very first boot camp when we did this. So I've been around almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years in January. Prior to Giant, like I've got almost a 30-year career going now. Half of it was in corporate America. So I like to say I was born and raised at Xerox. I did a little over 10 years working with partners of that company and that company. I did almost 5 years at Boise Cascade that during that time bought out Office Max. And in the last, like since 2008 to now, I've been involved in running my own businesses and starting things. So in the corporate world, it was always sales management, product management, product specialist. But I was never really fulfilled in the corporate world. I could climb the ladder pretty quickly, but when it was time to get political or travel, I was out. So in 2008, I started my own printing business, Greenlight Communications. It's still in existence. I thought, hey, if I did that, everything was going to work out, and I would have checked my little checklist of fending for myself, feeding family, making own money, all of that stuff. What I found out was the itch didn't get scratched by starting my own business. So I started another one. It was a marketing company called Craze that I co-founded with another couple of business partners. It was supposed to complement print. And that didn't scratch it. But because of that business, I met this guy named Jeremy Kubicek. His son and my son played football together. And it was one day I said to Jeremy when we were having coffee, always been a happy guy, but I've never been able to be content. And when you say something like that to Jeremy, his ears go like this. So he kind of mentored me, and we had met for coffee every other week for a year. And that's how I found out about Giant. And I said, I want in. He said, come on. And so that is how the whole journey began. So I'm going to enter year 8 next year. And the other businesses, the marketing company doesn't exist. The printing business still does. But Giant is literally about 99% of my time now. So,
and I would say this, like if you do the math, so you're talking 8 years of Giant, it literally is basically from day one. I think Dan was a part of the very first group of people that were over in Heads or Priory in London with Jeremy and Steve when they were just starting the consulting business that we're in now. And he was a part of that group. So I know it's been a long journey.
It's been a ride.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's been great.
Well, I've asked you to take some time just to think through what are some words of wisdom, what are some advice that you could bestow on other people who maybe just haven't been around for 8 years doing this. Maybe this is year one. We have a lot of people that have even just started consulting because they were laid off or they were furloughed because of COVID, and they're trying they finally allowed that to push them across the line to start something they've been thinking about doing. So we've got people in all kinds of ranges. Why don't you kind of take the helms? I know you have a few bullet points on a slide to walk through, and then we'll gather some questions from everybody.
Yeah, so I did, I'm a creative voice for those of you that don't know the voices yet. Our biggest opportunity is communicating clearly. So I decided if I was going to keep this to 10 to 15 minutes, I'm only having one slide. And if I look at my journey, there's a specific reason why I put a question mark next to best advice, because I've gotten a lot of advice in 8 years. And I don't, when is it the best advice? Is my best advice the advice you need? Probably not. Maybe pieces and parts. So you guys out there can decide what really hits a nerve or what hits home and what you have no use for. That's why I like that question mark there. It's been a conglomeration of input for me that has really made Giant the best thing I ever did. I also think that there's fine line between mindset and execution, because you've got to have a healthy mindset to be successful. Clearly, that's where it starts. But nobody values your mindset. If you don't have a good mindset, you're probably not going to have effective execution. But what people on the other side of us really value is our execution. So again, as you're looking at those that have great advice, do they really execute what they're advising you on effectively in their own world? You guys that know me have to determine whether or not I do this. So when I thought about All right, what have I think I've done that has made things go very well? Certainly last year go very well for me. These 5 bullets kind of came quickly. Very first client I ever had as a giant had 30 businesses. Talk about baptism by fire. But he always said he would fly into his businesses and he would want no more than 5 bullets from his staff. He said, I'm a 3 to 5 guy. And so I've always taken that to heart. Whenever I'm trying to really work on something specific, I try to boil it down to 3 to 5 specific things. So if I said, well, are there 3 to 5 specific things that I think I try to do all the time? This is what you're looking at on this slide. I think all of these bullets are things that are never finished. So that's the other way I always look at it. And I don't know that I'm doing any of these bullets really well. So it's really what I aspire to every day and what has kind of been my business plan. So I'll just go through them. So first and foremost, if one of you called me and said, well, give me one thing, I'd say be more self-aware than anyone. I mean, that's a very unrealistic goal, but I think everybody should aspire to it. It never finishes. Self-awareness never stops. Steve Cochran once said, we never graduate from the school of self-awareness. And I followed that up with most people never enroll. So I don't try to just be self-aware. I try to always be the most self-aware person in the room at any given time, which is a very uncomfortable place to be, because if you're doing it on the fly, you're really thinking, how can I undermine myself? How can I undermine myself? How can I undermine myself? And that's not a fun mindset. But if you're constantly thinking that way, you'll stop undermining yourself. So I drew that little graphic out on the right because I think if I said, all right, there's mindset and then there's execution, if you're really executing your self-awareness effectively, I think it's those 3 areas. So, you know, we used to say in the printing business, price, speed, quality, only pick 2. That's all you get. You can only pick 2. Well, in that same analogy, if we are really going to be effective at transforming people and doing what we do for others, I think it's a trifecta that you have to do all 3. You can't just be good at 2. So you've got to be hyper self-aware. But again, self-awareness is in here. But people don't value what's in here. They value what's coming out of you. Your mouth, your body language, how you carry yourself. That's all part of self-awareness. So your execution is usually through how you communicate. But if you're self-aware and you communicate really well, but you have no confidence, people are probably not going to view you as very credible. They may not view you as very competent. If you're self-aware and you're confident, but you don't communicate very well, welcome to my world. That's what I'm working on all the time. I have a lot of clarity on how to go to market, what I want to do, but making people see what I can see is very difficult for me. So that's always what I'm checking myself on is communication. If you're hyper good at communication and you're hyper confident, but you're not self-aware, then people probably think you're arrogant. So, you know, they may not be seeing humility, or they may not think you're fighting for their highest possible good. You know, they may think it's more about you than them. So I really believe that those 3 things have to come together in a perfect storm for you to be hyper effective at what you do. So once you have that, you have to then say, like, I'm always thinking about, how do I undermine myself? Well, I've also got to be thinking, where am I world class? I know a lot of people, I've coached a lot of people that are trying to be great at everything. I'm like, stop it. Just be world class at something, one thing. You can be highly effective at a lot of things, but be world class somewhere. And make sure you celebrate that. Make sure you know what your mojo is and celebrate it. So whatever it is for you, figure that out and celebrate that, and then align yourself to it. Now, some of you may disagree with this 3rd bullet, but I outsourced the rest. So I wasn't number 1 last year without Maureen Hyatt and Brandon Hutchins. And to large part, Chris Ediger. You know, I don't really buy into people that say, I did it all on my own. You know, I like to call those people out, because somewhere, somehow, some way, someone was in your life that helped you out. So we can work hard and really drive success, but if you surround yourself with highly competent, highly credible people that offset your weakness, you're going to have more capacity and you're going to do more. And for me, that's how I find balance. If I stop trying to do it all and I surround myself with great people, that gives me balance. The more balanced I am, I know that sounds cliche, but the more energy I have and the more effective I am. So I try to align myself with people that make me better so that I can hone in on what I'm world class at. And then lastly, this is probably one of the most difficult things to do, no fear. So we do a hard job. I mean, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And what I mean by no fear is if you haven't come across it already, you will come across a time where what you have to say to somebody is so uncomfortable, you're going to be scared. And if you hold back your truth because you're worried about an impact, like, hey, maybe it's going to get me fired. I've been fired twice. Maybe it's going to have a ding on my relational harmony. Well, now you're preserving yourself. That's self-preservation. So now it's becoming about you. It can't be about you. So if you strongly believe in something and you see it and you're afraid to say it, you better check that. You better start working on that. I've been nostril deep since George Floyd was killed in racial injustice coaching. No one made me the specialist. And how can a goofy white guy from Georgia be the one that can coach people in that area? I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know what qualifies me, but I'm drawn to it and I don't want to be afraid of it. I used to be. It caused me to abdicate. I don't want to abdicate anymore. I want to be part of the difference, not part of the problem. And if I'm afraid to have these conversations, then I'm a hypocrite in what I do. So that is really relevant to me right now. So I think that's what I've tried to live out, and that's what I've tried to do. I don't know if people wanted like structure or guardian-esque detail, but I'm the creative. I could have given you that in my Xerox days or my printing days, but in my giant days, that's what worked for me.
Yeah, I love that. A couple of follow-up questions. So when you're talking about that triangle, I know something that I've heard you say these, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get the 3 words right. So I'll ask you to clarify, but sure. I remember you having a conversation with me a couple of years ago of basically saying you have to be, I think it was good, known, and desired. Talk about that a little bit, because I know that talks a little bit about the triangle, but it goes a little bit deeper.
Well, I thought I was going to be God's gift to sales to Giant. And I quickly found out that I was incompetent at selling. And that had been what I'd done my whole life. At selling Giant, that is. I became good in understanding and applying the content really quickly. And I was known, but what I was known for was not Giant. I was Dan Frey, the print guy. If you needed something printed, I could do it fast, cheap, and at high quality. So I did a lot of it, but that didn't qualify me to have some sort of involvement or influence in somebody's life. So you need to be good at what you do, but known for who you are. Not what you think you are, but how people see you. And how they see you, they should desire that in their life. And that's what I realized, man, I was good, but people didn't know me, and they sure as heck didn't want me in their world based on my track record. It just was not in our space. It was in a different space.
Yeah. So what is it, kind of the same point that you had with the triangle? What happens when you have one of those, but you don't have the other ones?
Well, again, like, I think I became self-aware pretty quickly. But that doesn't matter. I think that's most important. I became self-aware by end of year 1. That was 7 years ago. But the communication and the confidence, I mean, I hate to publicly admit it, but I had a confidence issue for years. Like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be great at this and nobody wants me. I mean, just because I was good at Xerox and good at selling print doesn't mean they want me to come help them. And what was that? And I had to check myself a lot. Like, what are they receiving on the other side of me that's making me non-desirable? And I started changing the way I did business in a way that was, I'm going to do everything I can to make this person that I'm serving never want to let me go or always want to call me back. And when my phone started ringing, that was my barometer that it was working. And that's just always how I've done business. It's almost hard to talk about because it's not the linear approach that, like, many of you are probably doing very well. Like I get on Dave Bonnie calls because it makes me radically uncomfortable, but that's why I do it. I could do Dave Bonnie strategy all day long at Xerox. It's very hard for me to do it in Giant, but that's why I go do it. So I don't know if I answered your question clearly, Chris. You've got to have the ability to communicate where people see that you're good. They see your heart or your competence, and really both. And as such, they want you there. And if you're a heart person, you probably got to work on confidence. If you're a logic person, you probably got to work on your arrogance. Yeah, Brian Williamson said it once. We're all predisposed to either arrogance or insecurity. And I've always felt like people that are wired like me probably tip more toward insecurity. Confidence is the opportunity. People that are wired more like a pioneer are more tipped toward arrogance, and they need humility as an opportunity. So, but it's finding that. And then when you communicate, it's got to come out in a balanced way. Self-awareness with confidence and effective communication.
Yeah, that's good. One more question, and I'm going to bring Tracy back in so we can answer any questions that have come through from the viewers. Something that we talk about a lot is the only way to build a sustainable consulting practice in business is reoccurring revenue, not one-off projects. And yet I think all of us probably start from the place of doing what we're good at, which winds up being very finite in nature. Talk about that journey really kind of quickly, if you will, about what did it look like when you first started consulting? Was there a lot of kind of one-off project-based in and out type of work? How I know you've kind of transitioned into this. A lot of your clients are large multi-year contracts now. It certainly didn't start there, right? So what has that journey been like for you?
Well, back in the day, we called them accelerators. We do a 5 voices accelerator, a best fit accelerator. I landed lots of those, and they were usually 4-hour sessions, like half-day sessions, where it was a training vehicle to teach people either what their 4-letter Myers-Briggs type might have been, or what their 5 voices language is. But in every instance, whenever I did an accelerator, my mind was saying, what is it like listening to me right now? And what do I have to do about me to make these people want to call me back or not leave? Like, how can I give them a world-class experience? And that's the desired part of good, known, and desired. That was always going on in my head. And I'm not trying to kind of attaboy myself here, but it worked. It was never about what's coming out of, well, it was about that, what's coming out of me, but it was through the lens of sitting there watching me that I was always thinking, what is it like for the person sitting in the room? What are they experiencing right now? What's the group dynamic like? Is it crickets? Am I getting a lot of collaboration? Am I getting a lot of engagement? Am I getting vulnerability? Am I getting transparency? Like, I was always fighting for a very open, transparent, collaborative room. And if I could see that when I'd facilitate, I knew it was working. And then every now and then I just proactively call somebody and say, hey, thank you for being that way. And so reoccurring revenue happened for me pretty quickly, but it was in the form of retainer or people saying, hey, could you kind of go to this other team and use you on this team and this team? And so the large accounts that I have kind of grew organically inside, not from top down, but almost like inside up.
Yeah. So it was someone who had a impactful experience because of something you did, who either wanted you to continue to do more with them, or they wanted you to repeat that experience with somebody else or some other team. And that's really a process that continued to grow.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Tracy, I'm going to go ahead and pull you back in, if you will. Any questions that have come in from any of the channels that we could address?
Yeah, quite a few. And the first one, a couple people have asked this, Laura and Carrie. So they're asking if you would share a few pointers on how, like, with those first words that you're going to use, how do you open doors? And then what do you say at the very beginning of the client or a prospect?
So I got in trouble for this answer one time. So I don't want it to sound bad, but I play math. Okay, so look at the math on our 5 Voices content. 43% of the population is a nurturer, right? 37% of the population is a guardian, but 70% of both of those statistics, if it's nurturer, 70% are women. If it's guardian, 70% are male. If I meet somebody new, I run the math. If it's a female, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, I'm just playing math. Now, this offended somebody once when I said it. If it's female, I'm playing nurture until I get information to tell me otherwise. If it's a male, I play guardian until I get information to tell me otherwise. And what that means is my tone intact, my behavior needs to reflect what I think is needed to build chemistry with that voice. It's a nurture.
So give me an example. If I'm a nurturer and you're talking to me, what's that going to sound like?
So I'm going to ask you about your family. I'm going to look around the room and look and see if I see pictures, right? If I see your life story in pictures, that's another data point, right? I'm going to ask where you might have grown up. I'm going to try to do a little relationship before I get into my objective.
Yep.
But that's not the majority of my clients.
So and then if I'm a pioneer?
Yeah, 3 to 5. Like, why am I here? I don't know. You set the appointment. Yeah, but you took it. Yeah, well, like, you're supposed to be the leadership guy. What are you going to help me with? I don't know. I don't work here. Like, what hurts? I mean, it's literally that tone intact. I have had a tone intact with some pioneers and some guardians, and I'm like, I cannot believe he's allowing me or she's allowing me to talk to them this way. But they like it. It was a mind bake.
That's great.
But you got to know what voice the person on the other side of you values. And then you have to execute that voice effectively, not based on your preferences, based on their preferences.
Mm. Yeah, so some people might think that's manipulation, right? But what would you say to that?
I'd say it's dying to self in the spirit of making somebody else comfortable.
It's great. It's great. Okay, here's another question. Let's see. Sorry, I lost track because I got so into your conversation. This is a great question. You mentioned being world-class. So Jules is asking, what are you world-class at? And then she asked the same question as everyone else. How do you attract clients?
Yeah, I knew I was going to get asked that. Man, do I want to put that? Because somebody's going to ask me that, and I'm not going to make any sense when I say it. I'm a depth guy. I mean, really, if I didn't have some credibility behind me, I couldn't say this. I truly believe it, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I can see things that nobody else sees. Now, communicating it, different story. Implementing it, But I can smell opportunity or danger. And you hear Steve talk about that with Creative Voice anyway. Eons before anybody else. And then, so if I can really be in a coaching space one-on-one with somebody, I mean, I've had multiple instances of tears in 8 years. I mean, multiple. I've talked to other clients and they're like, you had somebody cry? I'm like, all the time, like weekly. Like pioneers, like men, buff guys. And I don't know. I think the depth of me is world-class. My ability to have energy to stay engaged with somebody and truly be curious about what the root cause of their challenge is and how to help them fix it all day long. Now, making somebody value that, entirely different story. Mm-hmm. So if I try to say I'm a depth guy to a pioneer or a guardian, it's like, yeah, thanks for coming. So I can't go there right away. I have to build credibility with all voices before I can get to where I'm world class. So that was the big epiphany for me. If you're going to be known and desired, well, getting known is like, I got to do certain behaviors to earn the right to be vulnerable with a nurture. I got to be an entirely different behavior set to earn the right to be vulnerable with a pioneer. And that was where the big aha came from. But once I can get to where somebody's pulling from me and they're open, that's when my world classness comes out. It's really my heart. It's a combination of my heart and my vision.
That's great. Okay, one more question if you have the time.
Yes.
This one is, do you have a favorite business book?
Can I say that? Listen, favorite business book's a Bible, in my opinion. I mean, read that. But then try to do that. That if you hold yourself to that, you will get results. Guarantee it. Otherwise, I've recently read Ray Dalio's Principles. When I read that, now I'm not saying I'm a Ray Dalio guy, but it changed. I'm not one of the giants that say we have a toolkit. I like to say we have principles because of Ray Dalio. Because if it's a principle, if it's a visual principle, people have to understand it, but then be bought into it. If they're not bought in, don't use it. But if they get it and they're bought in, well, great. Now you're bought in, apply it. And if they apply it, then they're going to figure out that they have issues that they have to try to master. Now you can work with them. So Ray Dalio's Principle is a good one to read right now.
It's good.
Very good. Great. So do you have time for one more? One more question came in.
I'm having fun.
This is a good one. Do you have an elevator pitch, Dan?
Yeah. Remember how I told you I'm consciously incompetent at sales? Fortunately, and again, I don't want this to sell bad. I haven't had to use one in ages because my phone rings. So that'd be my encouragement to everybody. Be so good at what you do that you don't have to do elevator pitches anymore. I literally had these two nice ladies 10 feet away from me at my co-working space this morning say, "What do you do?" And I'm like, facilitation, training, coaching, leadership space. That's it. Now, if you keep it that simple, they start to ask you questions where then I can go that route. Dave Bonney probably be like, "Why aren't you on my calls?" But yeah, I'm still working on my elevator pitch for 8 years.
That's funny.
Me,
Yeah, I was going to say David Bonney, for those of you who don't know, he's kind of a coach for those of us at Giant that he helps with sales. So if you don't know.
He's awesome.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and to me, I was just going to say, I think that's a testament to who Dan is that the depth that he goes into with clients to be able to serve them in ways that it is inspirational to me, and B, I know it's not innate to you. Like where you go and how you do that is a learned behavior. It is not something that is hardwired into you. You've done a lot of hard work in gears that you're not good at. You've done a lot of hard work in spaces that you're not comfortable in. Like you just, if there's any of those spaces, you actually run into it. You've learned to run into it instead of shy away from them. And I think that's where you get the payoff. That's why people just love working with you and why there's continuing to be opportunity without having to go out there and pitch yourself. So,
man, if this was a Friday, I'd end my day right now. It should be the end of a great week.
It is. This is awesome. Dan, thank you so much for being with us today. It's amazing. If you guys don't know him, just, it's such a wonderful good friend, but a wonderful part of our family. And I thank you just coming on here and sharing some wisdom. For a couple of things, and then we're going to hop off. As we do every week, just want to let you know, if you have interest to be in a place that Dan's in, and I'm not saying necessarily just, pure success factor. I'm just saying to be in a place that you get to do what you love every day and be able to impact people's lives and be able to provide in a healthy way too. We would just love for you to check out what Giant's doing, and you can do that at giantworldwide.com/accelerate. You can learn all about our coaching certification process and how you can become a guide in our system. And then these calls, come back to join us. We do these every week at 2:00 Eastern time on Tuesday afternoons. We're going to be back together again. Next week's going to be really special. I've invited 4 friends, colleagues that are consultants literally all over the world. We're going to have an international panel next Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. to talk about how they use coaching groups to be able to build their business and to be able to serve their clients. And I think you'll learn a lot of great wisdom next Tuesday if you join us. And you can do that quickly and easily by going to giant.tv/free account. Sign up for a free account. None of this costs you anything. Or continue to come back here onto Facebook or LinkedIn if you want to do that as well. And just appreciate the time that we get to invest in you on a week in, week out basis. Dan, thank you again. If there's anything that we can do for all of you, please let us know. Feel free to stick around here and drop in a comment even after we get off, and we'll come back and read those. And we truly do value those opinions, just like you're seeing on the screen. So, Tracy, anything else?
I think that's it. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye,
Yes.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a great week.